Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Human Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we're carrying on our preview of the Tan against Lei Women's Candidates final match, which is coming up very soon, with a previous game of theirs played in 2017. It was a hell of a fight. I think also, I think the structures that arose and the type of game that arose, and the good moves and the bad moves that were made, that probably gives quite a good impression of what we might expect during the match. So let's have a look at it. It was a very interesting game. So d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, e6, bishop g5. A Tan favourite, and now knight bd7. Now this was an opening that I said probably Lei would be wise not to try this one out. I just have the feeling that Tan plays these sort of systems quite well, and Tan actually had a very nice win against the very strong Goryachkina in the final game of the candidate semi-finals to win. So yeah, just seems like she knows this line pretty well. So e3 was played, queen a5, knight d2, bishop b4, very familiar Cambridge Spring stuff, queen c2, castles, bishop e2. And now in these sort of positions, black's always got to decide between moves like d takes c4 or e5 or c5. And here black plays c5 here. And now Tan played a move that's pretty unusual. Actually, it was it hadn't been touched anymore until just very recently, I think 2022, when Wojciech played it against Vasily Ivanchuk. We'll have a brief look at that game afterwards. But yeah, bishop f4, quite unusual, but quite interesting. And it's one of those moves that, you know, the engines are not particularly wowed about it. They find plenty of ways to play fine, but the black players seem to find it a little bit of a challenge. So it always means, you know, always interesting lines those. They just mean that there's something in them that's just not quite humanly intuitive, you know. So often lines like that, they might not be the best, but they can sometimes get pretty good results. So c takes d4, e takes d4 played, and now d takes c4. Very natural idea from Lei. The engines actually recommend rook e8, and this is actually what Ivanchuk played against Wojciech in this recent game I mentioned. So after castles, you go takes, takes, and you go e5, bishop e3. And here, Ivanchuk played it just a little bit riskily, I suppose. Not necessarily bad, but he played b6. And then after a4, this queen on a5 was well, just a little bit uncomfortable. You've always got to think now about knight b3 happening. So, I mean, you know, black played takes, takes, and bishop a6. So doing this, you know, frees a square for the queen on b4. But still, it was just always slightly uncomfortable. And, you know, even if the engines think this is perfectly fine, I think that, you know, from a practical point of view, where every single move you've got to say, ooh, is my queen going to get trapped in any unusual way, then, you know, I wouldn't really recommend playing like this. Especially when you look at the engine recommendation, which was just a very simple queen c7. Just bring that queen back into play, and after rook e1, you go b6 and bishop b7. And you know, black's pretty good, really. You know, nice pawns in the centre, very harmonious development, and yeah, you know, very nice king. You know, I mean, just nothing wrong with black's position. Maybe white can claim a small edge because of the two bishops, you know, but it's really very little. I'd be very happy to play this position as black out of the opening. So that was perhaps the best line, but yeah, you know, again, in a recent human game, ended in a win for white. But d takes c4 was played, knight takes c4, queen d8, castles, and now knight b6, and this is yeah, pretty much the main line here. Here in this position, Tan played rook d1, which was a novelty, I think. Not a particularly good one, I think. So I think this was probably, yeah, maybe over the board inspiration or something like that, because I think, you know, black's just got such a simple reply to it that I can't believe this would be preparation. The move that's been played up till now is, I think, the best one. It's this move, queen b3. Just irritating this bishop on b4. And well, in a game between two very strong players, that's Ruslan Ponomaryov and Alexei Dreyev, we saw bishop c3 takes. And this is quite interesting, actually. It looks very similar to a Karpov variation against the 4e3 Nimzo-Indian. And, well, the reason I mentioned that is that 4e3 Nimzo-Indian, that's what Tan plays a lot with white. So, you know, sort of this type of position could be the sort of thing that Zhongyi Tan would be very, very pleased to see. And actually, you know, the engines assess this very positively for white. Maybe over positively, but still, you know, I mean, white's going to play, you know, probably rooks to d1 and c1. Bring this bishop back probably to f1 and then play c4. It just got this lovely, you know, central control. The hanging pawns, two bishops, and the nice thing about it is this bishop on f4 here covers c7 and d6, and c7, d6. These in this line, these are the most common squares for black's queen. So you know, just a slight advantage. I played a lot of systems against the Karpov system, where I tried to get my bishop early to f4 and stop the black queen from coming c7 to d6. I was the only person who played them, so you can definitely have a look at my games in there, and I've got masses of analysis that I never used, unfortunately, but it was definitely a very interesting idea. So this should basically be quite a nice line for white. Yeah, I mean, queen a5 was played in that game. The engines were looking more at b6 or knight d5, which is you know, very reasonable. But I mean, let's have a look at knight d5, bishop b5, b6, rook d1, bishop f1, c4, bishop g3, h5, h3, rook c1, and we've got ideas like either d5 or c5. I'd much rather be white, you know. I mean, just a very pleasant position there. So queen b3 is quite good. The engines actually, of course, suggested something a little bit different. They wanted to go knight takes c4 takes, knight b6. So, yeah, white's also getting the bishop pair there, but of course we're leaving white with an isolated pawn on d4 and a slightly odd queen on b4. So after bishop b5, bishop d7, bishop f3, bishop c6 was what Stockfish wanted, takes. Very typical idea for black. You know, this pawn on c6 is weak, but it also, you know, gives a nice square on d5 and also some possible pressure along the b file. And yeah, I mean, a little bit of an edge for white, but nothing scary at all. But actually, after rook d1, yeah, I mean, I put my you know, I put all my engines onto lots of different positions for these games, and I started having a game against Leela at one node, as I always do. Really very useful to do this stuff. I can really recommend it. Take a look at my book, Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, and the extra supplementary material that's on the New in Chess website. You know, if ever you're interested in doing anything like that. But what Leela at one node suggested was this move bishop d7, and when I started looking at it, I suddenly thought, oh my goodness, this is actually really awkward, because black's got the simple threat of going bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and then bishop a4, and you're just skewering these two, and you're picking up the exchange, which is why I'm sort of thinking that rook d1 probably was more over the board inspiration rather than you know, a proper preparation, because actually this is just very nice for white. I mean, just yeah, just clear really. I think bishop e5 was been played in a previous game, possibly of Alina Lamy, if I'm right. But that's what I did. But yeah, I mean, knight takes c4 takes, and rook c8, bishop d3, h6 is perfectly fine. Yeah, Leela played bishop c6 against me, also good. You know, I mean, it's just black's just got a lovely position against the IQP, really. So rook d1 is not really going to be it, but this is quite interesting now, because you know, you get a lot of these IQP positions from the 4e3 Nimzo, which, you know, I would expect Tan to play at least once during the match, since it's her main opening at the moment. And well, I actually feel that Lei did not handle these very well as black. Didn't really seem to have a really nice feel for the nuances of it. I think, you know, if you play a lot of these positions, bishop d7 really natural, and you spot this unusual stuff. What Lei did in this position was just a little bit stereotyped, I think you might say. So might just be a clue that these are not her absolute favourite positions, although you've also got to bear in mind that this was played in 2017, 6 years ago. A lot can have changed since then, but still, that's the one thing that occurs to me, just looking through this game. So knight bd5 was played. Fine, occupying d5, but not really making the most of black's development, or of white's slight misstep, I think, with rook ad1. Bishop g5. Ah, no, this was the game. Alina Lamy, strong player and wife of the Dutch grandmaster Erwin Lamy, had played bishop e5 before, b6, rook d3, looking for the old rook h3 lift, which was quite fun. Tan played bishop g5, bishop e7 now. Again, just a little bit passive maybe. The engines wanted to play this move, queen c7, which is, again, you're just looking at the c file and trying to say, well, this rook on d1 actually would have been better on c1, really. That's and you've also got ideas like knight f4 as well. So, but there's nothing wrong with bishop e7. That's a very solid move, basically. Bishop f3 now, and I suppose my one objection to how black has played this with knight d5, bishop b7, is that it's given white a lot of freedom now to bring this bishop to the long diagonal and treat this a little bit like a Catalan, really. And it's not much better for white at all, but still, black's got the difficult stuff to do here. So rook b8 was played, which I think was the engine's main move here. Actually, Leela at one node suggested bishop d7. And if takes, black's got a couple of possibilities. I mean, you can just give up a pawn like this. It is possible because, you've got the two bishops, says you've no longer got any danger on the king. And this feels a little bit Benko style, really. You've got the b and c file to attack the white queen side. And, this was what the engines were doing, and they were having no problem at all drawing. It's just very hard for white to actually do anything positive here. An acquired taste, of course, playing like this, but not bad at all. Actually, Leela at one node played bishop f6, but I thought this should be something of an advantage. But again, black's got the two bishops. These knights are quite nice in the centre, but if you manage to get rid of that somehow, then you're doing quite well. I mean, I played knight d3 against Leela. I was hoping, to try and just get a quick d5, d6, and also have this knight covering squares like f5 and g4. The engines didn't like that somehow, so there must be something a little bit wrong with it, I guess. Knight c3, queen c7, knight d2 was what Stockfish and Komodo were doing. But yeah, then in that case you sort of feel, well, black's got decent compensation here. Got to watch out a little bit for for knights coming in somehow. But you just need to neutralize this, and then the two bishops will come into their own. So yeah, also not a completely stupid way of playing these types of position. Rook b8 was played by Lei, and that's a decent idea. But yeah. I don't know. Just didn't feels just a little bit uncomfortable putting a rook on here when there's a possible bishop f4 later. That's the only thing. But yeah, actually this bishop f6 takes knight d5, knight e3 was one suggestion of the engines. Didn't lead to so much, and you could also play knight takes f6 there. And just white's idea there is that you want to play a very quick d5, which could be dangerous. So the bishop goes back to b4 just to be able to take on c3 there. But to be honest, this is pretty. Oh, this was a nice idea. This is pretty okay for black as well. So I mean, we're still very much in the in the quite even thing, but somehow, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit. I don't quite like the way that black's played. I think there was more in the position, and it just feels a little bit awkward somehow. But objectively, there's nothing wrong with it at all. It's just my aesthetic sense, I think. So knight takes c3 played. B takes c3. This is often happening in these IQP positions. You change the structure. In some ways this strengthens white's position because the isolated pawn on d4 is strengthened. On the other hand, it gives you a target here and possibly here as well. But here again, Lei, didn't really, just didn't really get the position right, I think. What Leela at one node wanted to play was knight d7. This is very typical. We're just trying to exchange off pieces here, and relieve the pressure. And this is basically pretty good, really. Lots of possibilities. I mean, knight d7 forces queen takes d7, because bishop d7, bishop f4 will actually win the exchange, because rook c8, bishop b7 is rather awkward. So you've got to take with the queen on d7, but actually this is just fine. We go bishop d6, takes, you go c4, I go bishop d7, and black's obviously fine here. White's got a bit of a central advantage, but somehow all these central breaks are just much less dangerous if lots of pieces have been exchanged. Yeah, bishop f4 is possible as well. I had a look at bishop e3 against Leela 1 node. Actually, the best move there is just queen c7 for white, and after bishop f4, we're going to transpose back into our main line there. Leela played a little bit more incautiously, takes, queen a5. And then my idea here was to play rook d4, which I quite liked. Just threatening rook a4, and if queen e5, then I've got bishop f4, and that rook on b8 is rather awkward. b5 is the best move, but it should be a little edge for white here. But I'll just show you my game against Leela because it was quite funny. b6, queen b5, bishop c5, and then the queen ended up being trapped. Rook b1. If queen e8, then just bishop c5, and the rook on b8 is hanging. And after queen c4, then rook a4, trap the queen. That's what you can do with Leela when Leela's not looking that deeply. But basically, knight d7, very sensible move, very typical move for these positions. But Lei played queen c7, and I do sort of feel that, looking at this moment and also other moments in the game, I get the feeling that she's very much a player who likes to keep the pieces on, likes to keep tension in the position, not particularly keen to exchange off pieces. So, do wonder whether that could, whether that's, I've seen that right, and whether that could be a potential, weakness, something to possibly exploit. Because, she gets herself into trouble now, and the engines really start liking the white position now. So c4 played, very good move, taking control of the d5 square, possibly also looking for c5 as well. So Leela at one node suggested knight d5, still really trying to swap off some pieces. I tried a number of things. I looked at bishop c1. Actually, the favourite engine move is to play the move h4 here, just keeping the bishop on there. We're threatening. We've actually got a nice threat here, which is bishop e4, defending the queen on c2. Obviously, you can't take immediately because of queen c2, and attacking the pawn on h7. So that would be quite nice. And this was how the games were going. Takes, knight d5, takes, queen g3, and queen f4, rook c1, bishop e7 here, and queen f7. You can see basically pretty nasty for black. Just black's getting rather short of squares here for the pieces. And obviously with a knight hanging here at the same time, that's really rather awkward. So the position's rather difficult there. Bishop d6 was played in the game, and then c5 was played. Not the engine's favourite move, but still quite strong. Queen d2 was what they wanted, which is quite a nice move. I mean, if you take bishop f4, well, I did mention that rook on b8, the problem is you're also looking for ideas like here queen h6 or knight g4, as well as just playing c5 later. So rather tricky for black here, and the engines were scoring massively after queen d2. But c5 is very nice as well. One thing I wondered about was, could you possibly get away with taking on here? I couldn't see an immediate way that this was losing, and it's true actually. But we actually just go bishop h4. queen f5, queen b2, e5, bishop g3, and we just end up picking up a pawn basically in that case. And if you go rook a8, I think this is what Dragon tried. No, this is what Stockfish tried. I go rook e1, bishop g3, and I mean, look at that position. You know, just wonderful bishops, beautiful centralization. You know, White's just got a gorgeous position here, and well, Dragon beat Stockfish pretty easily from here. So after c5, knight d5 played. Queen to c1. So yeah, I mean, obviously you can't take the bishop because of queen takes c2. So yeah, we're playing queen c1 here. Very nice move. Just queen is protected and the queen's aiming towards this square. The very nice thing, again, queen e5, we just take and we go bishop f4, and again this rook on b8 is causing problems. So yeah, now Black's actually in big trouble here now. I mean, the engines are you know, ramping up to +2 or something like that. Leela at 1 though played bishop d7, and there's various ways of doing it. I just played the simple way actually, which was to take and go here. And the nice thing about it is that bishop b5, you know, uncovers an attack, so you sort of think, oh, you know, that's... but I can do it in several ways, but I found this way very, very tasteful. Bishop d6 and rook e1, you know, and, well, the fork of the two rooks remains, so White wins the exchange, and I had no problem winning that. I think Dragon went thrilling. He went bishop f6, king h8, queen h6, and rook d3, very similar to what we saw in the game. This is quite amazing, actually. I mean, I wasn't 100% sure that this should be like totally winning, but yeah, Dragon made it look like a force win, and well, once Dragon went for it, then Stockfish also agreed. You know, we're just well, we're going to take that bishop and then just pile through. So very impressive game there from Dragon. Actually, just how did the game continue? It was there, queen h6, threatening queen d6 checkmate. King d8, queen g5, king c7, and then rook c1. Easy to miss, but picking up the queen there. So yeah, I mean, Black's in a lot of difficulty here now, and well, what Lei did was b6, c6 happened, bishop a6, rook e1, and rook bc8. And now something has to happen, obviously, because this c6 pawn is going. And this was something that really surprised me, because Tan played bishop d5 and following it up with bishop f6, exploiting this weak king side, and that just looks completely, absolutely normal. But the engines didn't like it that much, and actually they just said that this was completely winning, which is one of those judgment things, you know, that that engines just do so well in actual fact. Yeah, I mean, the key point is, and it's not easy to understand it really, is that, well, I mean, these bishops are actually, and this bishop on g5 in particular, they're completely dominating the black position. I mean, actually, you can't put something on d8 without it getting taken and leaving White an extra pass pawn up. So actually fighting against, you know, this pawn on c6, the bishop on d5, the pawn on e5, the bishop g5, getting even close to breaking this is absolutely impossible. And well, let me just show you, you know, a few ways how it went. Rook c8, f4, bishop c8, and h3 simply. Bishop e6, bishop e4, bishop c8, queen c4, king h8, queen c3. Just Stockfish very slowly and very gradually just holding in on there. Bishop d5. You know, Stockfish doesn't really seem to have done very much, but just increase the control, and Black's tried to move pieces around, but it's just not really working at all. And then I think in this position we got desperation with bishop b7. Oh, this was from Dragon as Black, sorry. But yeah, you know, I mean, it's really just White managed to keep, you know, complete control there. And there was another very nice line where Stockfish was Black, I think, and played bishop d3. That's right. And then, well, we just got some, you know, a bit of thrilling stuff. We just kept on attacking like this. G4, f5, queen d4, g5. Yeah, once again, I mean, you can see the poor black king here, you know, just completely open there. So, but again, you know, just one of those judgment things somehow to see how good it is that, yeah, would certainly take me a while, I might think, oh, very good compensation, but I would most likely think as well, well, why go for compensation when I can just go for a surefire attack against the king? The funny thing is that this throws away most of White's advantage. It needs a phenomenal defense, which Lei finds, but in actual fact, the engines now consider the position to be virtually equal. So takes Queen h6, f5, just making sure that White doesn't even get a sniff now anymore of e takes f6. So we give a check. Very typical to do this. You can swap the White queen around with checks and then go rook e3. And what's the point of putting the queen on f6? Well, it stops f7 to f6, so the black queen can't get across. And of course, very hard for black to now to involve pieces in the rest of the board. But now the amazing desperation comes in. f4. And then we've got rook d4, and to be honest, I would expect that this is as far as Tan got in her initial calculations. It's a brilliant move. Obviously f takes c3, we've got rook g4, checkmate, and the really nice point is after queen c6 we've got rook g3 check takes and rook g4 checkmate. So I would imagine that that Tan got this far and just said, okay, well, this must surely be winning. But Lei found this incredible defense, bishop e2, which is covering this g4 square, and preparing just to bring the bishop back h5 to g6 and just block everything. And at the same time, of course, black's threatening queen c6. So it's just not. There's just nothing. There's just nothing amazing for White here. So Tan played queen g5 check, takes, rook takes c2, queen c6, added bonus with threatening checkmate. And then rook e1 was played, and now a good move from Lei, f6 as well, just breaking that up. Queen takes f4, and you see how the position's changed, and amazingly enough, with this bishop e2 defense, basically lots of pieces have got exchanged, were equal in material. But here it starts to go a little bit wrong for Lei, and again I really feel that there's that you're noticing a slight tendency to avoid exchanging pieces, and just wanting to keep tension at all costs, really. The engines are obviously not at all bothered either way, and they just want basically to force the exchange of queens in this position. And rook d5, we go rook c2. Rook d7, we go rook c takes f2, rook takes a7, rook f7, and they're just going to draw this rook and pawn ending a pawn down. It's relatively trivial. What Lei does is go rook c8. The problem is that it really seems to be that the engines consider that with the queens on, this position is like way better for White. Not just a little bit better, not just those queens, with this rather open king on h8, those queens can be a bit awkward. No, I mean at times the position's going just like into a clearly winning territory. So I think it's very important. I mean, it is a well-known thing that the key factor in major piece endgames is the weakness of the opponent's king. But to see the evaluations that high, and to see the engines being so convinced, that with the queens off it was just dead draw, but with the queens on, White was borderline winning. I was really quite surprised, I have to say. It might also be that Lei spotted some real tactical chances. Obviously, the White king back rank here is a little bit awkward, and decided to go for them. But definitely missed a chance there. Queen h6 is a very nice riposte. If you go obviously fe, I've got queen takes c6, and rook takes c5. I've got queen takes f8 check. So after queen c3, rook ed1. Fe, rook d5, and White's managed to get out of that little inconvenience there, and also keep the queens on. And now the engines really are thinking that this is very good for White. And I mean, Dragon is beating Stockfish from this position, Stockfish beating Dragon. And well, that's quite telling. If they're managing to beat each other from these positions and hold the occasional draw, it must be pretty difficult. Let's have a little look. I'll show you one of those games. We'll do Stockfish against Dragon. How is Stockfish doing it? Yeah, I mean, actually, avoiding the exchange of queens, that's one of those things. And just swapping off one pair of rooks, that's pretty much it. And then here going for the queen versus two rooks. Find these positions very difficult to understand, really. But yeah, Stockfish here seeing this as a clear win and bringing it to fruition. I'm just trying to find maybe another one that's a little bit more typical. Let's have a look. Well, this is Dragon against Stockfish. Let's equalise it. Yeah, here's Stockfish actually, really saying, "Oh, I can't stay as I am with the queens on. I've got to open up the opponent's king." But again, this position turned out to be pretty good for White. Yeah, somehow with this pass pawn on e5. Stockfish really felt that the rooks had to stay passive, and that just basically gave White huge amounts of time to just gain space and push the black position back. Not easy to understand these positions. I don't really fully understand why they should be, as good as they are, really, according to the engines. But still, obviously something you've got to be careful about. And swapping off the queens would have been, really, really easy way to do that. So yeah, Lei still trying to exchange off queens now, which is quite interesting. G3 played, Queen F5, Queen E3, King G7. By the way, if Queen F3 straight away, got to watch out for little tricks here, because you've got Rook D8 in this position, and if Rook D8, we've got Queen takes E5 check followed by Rook takes D8. So nice little trick there. But King G7 played. Yeah, and now what the engines wanted was to play not this move Rook D5, but to play the move Rook D8, and go for a queen versus rook position where the black king is exposed. Basically, it's it's very dangerous. I mean, if Queen F3, we've got Queen G5 checkmate, for example. So you end up being passive, but somehow the engines just know how to tighten the screw. Really, gain space on the king side, then they end up winning this pawn and. Well, this is a Dragon trying to get some counterplay here, but just not really succeeding. And Stockfish just won this in the end. So again, this exchange of rooks, getting queen and rook versus in a position where the opponent's king is weak. Again, the engines are seeing this as virtually winning. And, well, that might seem a little bit too much to me, but obviously something you've got to be very careful about. But after Rook D5, Queen F3, suddenly it's a little bit difficult for White to avoid the exchange of queens. So we got here, and Rook 1 D2, Rook F5, Queen H6, Rook F6, really trying to force White to swap off queens on E3. And Tan tried her best to keep the queens in there. I think now, and it's not too surprising, moves like E4 followed by E3 would have been very, very sensible. Lei does this a move later. I think she, again, my feeling really is that she was getting very optimistic here again, and again thinking, well, oh, wait a minute, I could even win this somehow, and that's going to be, I think, a strength for her, obviously, but also could possibly be a weakness. A little bit in the same way as, for example, Jan Timman had this very much indeed, or Bent Larsen, those great players. Incredible optimism, which sometimes may allow them to do amazing things, but also sometimes, stop them from choosing the correct cautious approach in some positions. So Rook C6, hoping for Rook C1, Queen F1 played by White, E4 and Queen A1. And here, here a slightly odd move maybe from Lei here, or just a little bit inaccurate. I mean, played Queen F6, after which this rook is slightly more passive when it captures on F6. Queen c3 was the best, and well, we've got a lovely active rook here. Could even come to a3 to cover a7, attack a2, and it's also supporting e3. I mean, this is just this should just be a very easy position for black. The Indians weren't even bothering to play e3, just doing stuff like this, and then afterwards the rook goes to a3, and you're absolutely fine. I mean, that would have been the simplest. When after Queen f6, it's not bad, but somehow, the rook comes to d7 instead of having a rook on a3, which is covering everything and helping everything. You've got the rook on f6, which is maybe a little bit strange, but not bad at all. The next few moves are very well played by both sides. So black's got nice cover. This rook is a very good defensive piece, covering the h6 pawn and the b6 pawn, and also covering the f7 square as well. So Tan-Lei king f1, very natural, trying to get the king around here. And then e3 played. Rook c8 actually was the favourite engine line, just to try and get the rook active and pick up an f2 pawn or something. But nothing wrong with e3. f4, quite a sharp little idea there from Tan. She's just accepted that the black's got this pass pawn on e3, but obviously hoping to develop a 3-against-1 kingside majority. But rook c6 played, and now rook c7. e2 and rook c1 was obviously not something you could allow. So rook c7 takes. And rook d8, and I mean, really, you should be thinking about, this is just heading for a draw, really. Rook e4 was another idea that you could do. Maybe not even thinking about giving up that e pawn, but also, keeping the idea of going rook a4 in reserve as well. But rook d8 is certainly very sensible. King e2, rook d2 check, king e3, and now rook takes a2. And maybe it's not wrong yet, but maybe this is a little first misstep somehow, because what actually happens now is that how Li plays this position. Again, she plays, I think, all out for the win, really. I'm just wondering whether she absolutely needed a win in this game somehow, or whether this is just her natural style. I mean, the latter is possible as well, of course. But the way that you're going to hold this is, well, you're going to get rid of this pawn. And then you can actually, if white starts trying to advance with the king, then you can easily just drive the king away, because, well, all of these pawns are vulnerable. When this one's, what actually happens in the game, as we'll see, is that these pawns remain intact, and that just gives perfect cover for the white king to invade. And so rook b7, rook b2, king e4. And again, rook takes h2, always. Because, you come around and attack the g pawn, and then when the white king comes to g6, then you just play rook takes g3 check. That's the sort of idea. So, for example, rook h2, king f5, or even rook d2 in this position. Here, rook d7 was what the engines wanted to play, and meet something like, king g6 with rook g7 check even. Many ways of playing it. Also, you're vaguely looking at going rook a7 as well, for example. But the basic idea is that you try and destroy that white king side so that you can give checks more easily. What Lei did was incredibly risky. A4, king f5, again rook h2, still the best here. Getting it's a little bit more risky, a little bit more fraught. King g6, we go king f8. But if you go now f5, I go rook g2, check king e7, f6, king d7, and then I just check you away. Rook f3, and, well, king e6, lots of moves basically, but we're going to run with this king and the a pawn and manage to win the rook for it. But it's all about, I guess, destroying the amount of white pawns white's got, but also being able to chase away the white king when it's supporting its pawns. And what black did here, black played king f8, and this was a very big mistake actually, which didn't go completely punished, because king f6 would have been really strong here. Basically, you're advancing with tempo, and after king e8 you go f5, and you're just now basically too slow to stop the white king. So I go, for example, rook takes h2 here, rook b6, a3, rook a6, a2. I go g4, rook g2, rook a8 check, king d7, king f7, rook g4, rook a2, and this is just a known win for white. We're going to play check, and then the f-pawn will be unstoppable, and the king just can't get close to support the h-pawn, so it's just totally losing. Yeah, and you just find that essentially white's king gets completely settled. The black king gets driven away before the black rook is into the checks, and that's because you've started chipping away at the white king side way too early. Well, Li kept on going a little bit kamikaze with well, king g6 was played, not king f6, with a3, f5, a2, rook a7. And well, that's as far as black's getting. The problem is, this they're very powerful, these 2 pawns, but it takes ages. The pawn's got to go to b3, and the rook's got to go to b1. We've got to go a1 queen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves before we queen. Well, I mean, it's just 2 moves to mate for white, so just terrible there. So rook takes h2. We went f6, rook e2, check, rook a2, b5, rook a7. And black resigned here because, I don't know, after a move like b4, we go rook h7, king g8, f7 check. Mate, in actual fact. So that's mate, isn't it? Yeah. So that would be, completely winning. So, yeah, very interesting game. Probably, obviously, because Zhongyi Tan won it, we're seeing more her strengths and more Tingjie-Lei's weaknesses. Just in terms of you're looking ahead to the match, I wasn't sure that Lei handled the these IQP positions particularly well with black. I felt that she maybe wasn't really used to exploiting the maximum possibilities that you have in the position. In particular, for example, after rook d1, this move bishop d7, for example. Felt that her play was a little bit stereotyped there with knight d5 and bishop e7. And then what I felt during the game was that black seemed to be really averse to exchanging off pieces, which does make me wonder whether this was maybe a must-win game for Lei, and that she was avoiding this because was really looking for all the time consistently for ideas that didn't exchange off pieces and kept playing the position. That might just be also her active style as well. And then I saw some there were some very amazing things in that game, also some amazing engine stuff. What you saw, though, was Lei's resourcefulness in defence with this incredible move, bishop e2, which is a great spot. And, got her right back into the game. And then, just again, this maybe reluctance just to swap off queens and go for a simple ending where you're a little bit worse, but where the draw is pretty trivial for a strong player. Just looking for complications more, and then I think you saw that again just towards the end there, that instead of playing for a simple drawn endgame, really played a very aggressive line where you're trying to move your pawns forward, but that was just never going to work. Not with the white king, so active there really. Obviously you're not 100% sure about the tournament situation, but just in general, if I'm looking at there, I'd say Lei maybe some not a brilliant feel at the time for IQP positions, and maybe a tendency to play very actively, not swap off pieces but keep pieces on the board. So we'll see whether that's true, or whether this was influenced by the tournament situation, or whether in the intervening 6 years, whether one or both players has changed their style completely. That can also happen. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I thought it was a very interesting game, also from the theoretical point of view. If you enjoyed it, why not give a like, subscribe, take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, also a chessable course. And why not, whilst you're going there, take a look at Study Chess with Matthew Sadler, another chessable course, a book I wrote back in 2014 or 2012 even maybe, but very proud of that book. It was a very personal thing, so yeah, might be worth taking a look at that as well. But otherwise, thanks very much for watching, and hopefully see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.